tool that allows you to detect dead code in Haskell projects. And I want to show that in the example of Google, which is the search engine programmed by Neil Mitchell. I'm not going to talk about Google much, but I'm trying to detect some dead code in that project. So dead code is something that is code in your project, but it isn't used anywhere. So, for example, this is one of the files in Google. If we just include something like this, then this is not used anywhere and should be dead code. It should ideally be removed. In GHC, with the standard settings, this will not trigger any warning or any compilation error if you have dead code. What you can do is you can pass some compilation flags to GHC. For example, what's it called? F1 unused bytes. And then I have to touch this file again so that it's recompiled. And then you can see that you get a warning, defined but not used, right? Which is great, but this only works locally in one module. So, for example, if this module has an explicit export list, which states that the action test is exported. So GHC can look at this module and say, like, oh, I know foo is not exported, so I know it's not being used anyway because it's not used in the module. But if I include foo in the export list, then GHC cannot warn about this at all. So it compiles the module, and of course foo is exported, so it's being used. But then also when it compiles main, it doesn't realize that foo is not actually used anyway. The same happens if you don't have an explicit export list, because then every top-level declaration will be considered exported. And in that case, GHC also cannot do anything. So there's lots. I mean, GHC is useful in this regard, but there's lots of situations in bigger projects where you do have dead code, and GHC cannot do anything about it because it only looks at one module. And that is where the dead code detection tool comes in. So what you have to do is you have to provide a root, which is kind of like your entry. You want to look at one module and then check that there's no code that is not used somehow transitively from that module or from that module. So you can specify multiple roots. So in our case, it's just the main module, and we also have to tell it where to find this the source files. And then this is an error that I want to show it because a lot of people stumble over this. So it tells us could not find module input.type, right? And I don't know what's going on, but I can search for this import, and then this is in the source the Google module. Well, if you look at this module, then it actually turns out that this is not being compiled at all. So this is just a file that is included nowhere, that is imported nowhere, that imports this input.type module, which is an error because it doesn't exist. So Neil Mitchell actually used this tool and then asked me, like, yeah, but why is this module being looked at if it's not being imported? And my answer is that this is exactly the right behavior for a dead code detection tool, because if you have a whole module that doesn't get imported, well, then the dead code detection should report that and say, like, oh, we have a whole module that isn't even used, right? So the tool actually doesn't rely on GHC's dependency chasing, but just looks at every Haskell source file in the provided source module, source directory, and just looks for everything. So the simple solution is just to remove this file. As you know, it's dead code, it should be removed, right? And then we can try again. And then we can actually see that foo is being reported as dead code, which is exactly what we want. There's also some other dead code functions, can invoke this tool from Vim to be able to jump to the positions of the reported functions. So the first one is foo, and well, we can just delete that. The second one that is reported is this map maybe C, which has some alias that is defined. Well, you can imagine how this ends up being in a project and not being used, right? That's a typical example of, you think this is useful and you put it in, but then you use it nowhere, or you used to use it somewhere and then you take it out. So if we delete this now and save the files, of course we would imagine that if this was really dead code, then it should compile, right? But it doesn't. But this is exactly because we have an explicit export list, and map maybe C appears here. So this is the position that it's not complaining about, where it's kind of being used, but not really, right? Like, but it's just referenced. So if we delete that, then the whole project should actually build again, showing that this is actually dead code. So I was always a bit frustrated by there not being a tool like this, because we have a statically compiled language with Haskell, and it feels like you should be able to reason about things like dead code with a tool. But it didn't exist. I mean, GHC has this module local dead code detection, but a tool across or a project didn't exist. So that's why I started this project. And it's a bit experimental, so it might happen that if you try it on a new project that there's language constructs that are not supported yet. If that happens, please write a bug report, and I will try to fix it, and then hopefully at some point support all the Haskell constructs that are being used in practice. Thanks a lot. That's it. Yes. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. That's all.
Any other questions?
I think we can have a free time so people can ask you about the project. Yeah.